Hey there, this is a review for our recap for our Cast Crusades campaign, session number 68. We had four players. We started off with three, and had one join us a little bit late for this. So we had, for all the characters, we had Barry, Lork, Rene, and Spraull in on this session. And we picked up where we left off. They're in the ruined Elflands. They've defeated the Lenorm King, and they are met with the spirit of the Elf Lord Hastion and a retinue of elven spirit warriors, I guess you could call them. And basically, they're acknowledged for their defeat of this Lenorm King, which has been oppressing the fallen Elflands for well over a century. So they're allowed to leave in peace. There's a little bit of a nod of respect from Hastion to Lork, because Lork actually carries Hastion's sword. And they leave. They now they want to head to back east into the forest to Honoriel's tomb, where they're in hopes they can awaken her, and she will reward them, hopefully, by giving them hairs, some of her hairs, so they can make this brush that they need to join the two pieces of the rod of seven parts that they possess. They don't waste any time. They're a little banged up, but they keep going, and they're into their travels when Lork, who's per the usual scouting ahead, he gets the distinct impression that they're being followed, and he falls back to warn the rest of the party, and then remains. They keep pushing forward. Lork just stays closer to the party than he normally does when they're traveling this way. And eventually, on the path before them, they see a man, and they recognize this man as the one of the men that they met in the village, the ruined village that was at the base of the Pass of 10,000 Steps. It's one of the scavengers that they actually spoke to. And he's just standing there kind of on this, they're on this old game trail, and he's just watching them. And Lork approaches, and the rest of the party catches up, so they're all kind of there. And Lork speaks to him, and the man responds saying, basically, Kothka sends her regards. And he then, to their surprise, he transforms into basically a werewolf. And the party understands that this is now the time for conversation is probably over, and they attack. Rene and Lork close pretty quickly with this werewolf, and the battle starts. So typical for me, I never won a round of initiative in this combat, not a single one. So the party did pretty well in that regard. However, they were surprised when several more werewolves came out of the trees to flank them. So the characters like Barry and his Iron Cobra that were backaways, and later on Spraull hadn't joined us yet. Matt hadn't joined us quite yet, so he was kind of in the background. So it was really just down to, I had three actual players for this. Barry, Lork, and Rene were being actually played. So the rest of the party is flanked by more werewolves, and the battle is joined. Barry takes some damage from werewolf attacks. I rolled. They also have Bodhild with them. She's still with them, so she actually joins in. She actually kind of is protecting Spraull, because Spraull is suffering from the effects of the Lenorm King still. Its breath weapon, where it withered his leg and is unusable. He's on Brovis, his war goat, mount, and he can't walk or anything like that. So that kind of explained him being out of the action. And Bodhild stays near him, and subsequently Barry, trying to protect them because they're all under attack. And Bodhild takes some damage. Lork takes some damage. Rene actually took a lot of damage because one of the extra werewolves came up behind him. So Rene is proven to be, he was built to be a tank. Steve built him to be a tank. He did a really good job constructing him that way. But with an attack from behind, you don't get your shield bonus. So his armor class is a little bit lower. So I was able to, and I scored a critical hit on him. I want to say it was a ×3 damage. I might be wrong about that, but I think it was, because I did a lot of damage to him. Like, Rene took a bit of a pounding in this combat. They ultimately end up defeating all but one of the werewolves. Barry gets out of melee. He starts dropping spells like Wall of Fire and stuff like that, which hit 2 of the werewolves that they were fighting. And Lork and Spraull are able to, they kill the one that spoke to him, and the other one that was attacking them. And one of them gets away. Barry's kind of insistent that they track him down. And Lork tries. He hops on Fenris and he tries to track him down. It had, in game terms, probably a round ahead of them, and it was triple moving. So, and werewolves have a good movement rate. So Lork actually wasn't able to track him and keep up with him, and they lost him. So they realize this isn't good. They're even more dinged up now. I didn't know this at the time because I don't pay attention to it. But Rene was down to 1 hit point by the end of the battle. And again, like I said, I didn't win initiative at all through the whole combat. So when it came down to that last round before they defeated the werewolves and the one fled, it was really important that the party win initiative, because had I gone first, a very strong likelihood that Rene would have been killed. So it was a much more tense battle than I expected. I did beef up these werewolves a little bit because I actually honestly haven't found a game system that does werewolves well, in my opinion. If you look at any movie about werewolves, any good werewolf movie, they're devastating. And I've never found really game stats that match that. Not in D&D style terms. So I beefed them up. Plus the parties, they can dole out some damage. They're 7th. Some of them are 8th level. Cosmo's 8th level, so they can throw down some damage. So I had to beef these guys up a little bit. But they survive the fight, and they continue on. They do a little bit of healing, and eventually, we didn't belabor a lot of travel. They've been doing a lot of travel, and I like to do travel stuff in my games, but we've been doing a lot of it. So I kind of moved that along. I mean, I didn't want to belabor the point of them getting to Honorial's tomb. So we had this one encounter, and then the rest of it, I think there was like a day or so had actually passed. So they ended up camping, but we didn't even do much with it. I'm sure Rene, he probably made some crazy food. I'm pretty sure he did. He always does, which is fun. But they make it to Honorial's tomb, and they find her where they left her, and she awakens, and the first person she sees is Lork. So she's a little shocked by this, because Lork is not the most handsome fellow. He has a lot of orc blood in him. He's a half orc, but he's game terms, he's rocking a 6 charisma. So he's not the most handsome fella in the world. So she's a little bit shocked by this, and then she looks around and she sees this really motley assortment of adventurers there, and but she also recognizes the sword that Lork carries, the Blade of Hastion, and she ends up talking to, she talks to them, and she kind of talks to Lork at first, which puts Barry off, because he's like, why is she not paying attention to me? I'm way better looking. And but she does end up addressing the party, and they fill her in on what happened, that they've defeated the Lenorm King, the curse or spell that's kept her in basically stasis has been lifted. And they're asking a favor of her, and of her hairs, and she talks to them. She finds out, the Hastion has fallen, which they clearly see saddens her. But she does grant them their favor, and she also goes on to say, they ask her what she plans to do, and her plan is to restore the elves to their former glory. And she's like, that will probably take centuries, because this elves in this part of the world are very scattered, the ones that still live, and so it's going to take her a long time. But she also names the party Elf Friend, so they have that title that may come back into play at some point in the campaign. I don't know, but she does grant them that title, and allows them to stay in her garden to rest, because they do need rest, and they look a little. They did do some healing, but they're a little beat up. And then for the rest of the night, they camp, and she spends a little bit of time with them, but then she leaves. She wants to see her garden again, so they catch glimpses of her through the trees, and they can hear her singing different, elven songs, and that's just kind of the background. But they waste no time. In the morning, they head out. They don't see her again, and they're now en route to Alden, the village of Alden. They need to collect Moira, Barry's apprentice, and pick up the wagon crew and stuff, and they want to head back to Arden. Their goal is to get back to Arden for some rest. And we don't belabor that point. They do reach Alden. Lork talks to Ulfric Stormcrow, the village chieftain, and he talks about the hobgoblins, because their plan they're formulating now is it's coming into fall, and they want to, in the spring, have mustered an army. They want to return and fight the hobgoblins. That's one of their plans that they're kind of kicking around. So Lork talks to the chieftain, who is all for that, and he tells Lork that he will, over the winter, they will get his men ready, but he will also reach out to some other villages in the area, and get their chieftains on board so they can all provide troops in the summer. And Lork plans to talk to Mormac, his chieftain, about bringing troops north to fight the hobgoblins. And they also want to talk to a person they met a long time ago in real time, especially a long time ago. But there was Bohan, who is is in charge of like the border kingdoms up there, and has fought them before, and they want to talk to him because they'd met him. Lork had met him in Mormac's hall and had talked about going north with him to fight giants, because Mormac was the one that told him that giants had been a lot more active. So with that, they return. They stop in Highhold, which is still under construction. It's coming along well. They've been gone a few weeks now, and it's doing well though. They're rebuilding. They have a camp where there's a lot of drinking and celebrating. They're feeling a little bit more relaxed. They're in much more friendlier territory, although this area isn't as settled as around the village of Arden. There's a drunken revelry around a campfire that actually got played out really well. There was a fun scene with Bothild trying to show a drunk Moira how to wield her two-handed sword that she has that the party gave her. And Moira, who's also well into her cups, tries to raise it up over her head and goes ass over tea kettle, crashing into the bushes. And Bothild just kind of laughs at her, then helps her up and makes jokes about needing to put some meat on her bones. Although, as a northern girl, young woman, Moira isn't overly frail. She's not Bothild either. Bothild's probably 4 or 5 inches taller than she is and much stronger than she is. So it was a fun scene. Rene's making food. I think he made some dessert, I think it was. And it was just a lot of fun. In that conversation, though, the question comes up in character, about, they asked Bothild if she would like to continue to travel with him, because she's from Highhold. She's actually technically even further north, but she grew up in Highhold. Her parents had moved south, and she grew up there. And she agrees. She looks at the sword that they gave her. It's like laying across her lap, and she's like, you know, I'm destined to do more than just be, you know, live in High Hold and grow up that way. She's destined for adventure. That's her whole thing. So she agrees to help them. Barry, however, he's not opposed to this, but like this brings back memories of Brea, his young woman that he had as a follower that was killed by a piercer, and that really affected Barry to the point where he doesn't want to be responsible for like followers like as much. Like it's why he left Moira behind. He doesn't want to be responsible for another follower's death. And Lork recognizes that and goes in and talks to him because he kind of removed Barry removed himself from the conversation. He went in his wagon studying one of his books, and Lork goes in and talks to him, and they basically agree, she can decide what she wants. She's obviously very capable, and they can use her help. So, and they have a good conversation, and this was a role play back between my son who plays Lork and my buddy Dave who plays Barry. So it was a real good scene, and it kind of it didn't alleviate the fears that Barry has about it, but it made it a little bit easier to deal with, I think. And Dave can chime in with his comments when he sees the video on what Barry was thinking. They return. They continue south. Lork, however, stops. The party actually stops. They don't go directly to Arden. They go to Iredale Stronghold, which is like the new base of operations for the chieftain. They liberated that from the bugbears, and that's kind of where everything shifted over in this area. Arden is still there, the village, but probably, and it's active because the mining town to the west is real active, and that's a stopping point. But about half of the villagers have shifted over to Iredale Stronghold. He goes, he sees some of the wolves of Arden that he's actually in charge of, and one of them is from his patrol is a man named Alfric, and he tells Alfric that he's here to see Mormac, the chieftain. And he's like, yep, he's actually in council right now. So he goes in, and he's actually in council with Bohan, who is returning from the south. And Lork is welcomed back and invited into the council. Bohan tells them that he was delayed coming home. He was gone to the capital city of Carlisle and to meet his brother, who's the king there. And he was delayed because there's tensions rising between the kingdom of Bernalia, which is where the party is in, the location the party's in, and the kingdom of Ashan, which is further to the south. And the kingdom of Ashan used to rule all of this land, and then through the wars, the Dragon Wars, which was about 150 years prior to this, the land became fractured, and they decided, like Bernalia decided they didn't want to be under Ashan rule. So there's been like a tentative peace, but there's a separation of power there that apparently Ashan doesn't seem happy with, because there's been some clashes along the border. Not like open warfare, but like there's been clashes between troops. So Bohan tells them that. Lork fills them in on the hobgoblins. Bohan is familiar with them because he was the one that in a big battle drove the hobgoblins back to the Bastard, which is the name that they've given the hobgoblin fort. And so Lork tells his plan of, hey, in the spring, I want to take troops north and take care of those hobgoblins. Mormac, he's all for it. Like he's not well suited for the political side of leadership. Like he's still, even though he's on in his years, he's still very capable, and he's still very intent, to get into battle. So he's all for it, as is Bohan, and they work out some logistics, and with the plan, and in the spring they will attack the hobgoblins. Where else did we go? I'm just glancing through my notes, see if I missed anything. Lork, they then return to the village of Arden, and Lork goes to his home. He meets up with Seamus and his apprentice Bruin, which is Ronan's younger brother. And Lork catches up with them. Seamus has been training Bruin, who's taken right to it. So Lork does some training with him and tells him that he's pretty proud of how he's come along. and he gives Bruin the elven longsword that they found in the treasure pile. It's game mechanics wise not magical, but it's an expert weapon, so it's a little bit better than a regular longsword. And he gives him that. Bruin is very appreciative of it, and he's really taken to the training. Like, he's used to hard work growing up on the farm, so he's like, he doesn't balk at any of the hard training that Seamus or Lork put him through, so he's all for it. They also, so now they get some downtime and they start working on some side projects. And this is kind of what I envisioned this session to be. Like, they've had some, like, getting the hares has been a series of rough sessions for them. And so I was like, well, this session we'll give them some, they have the combat encounter, but we'll give them some downtime so they can accomplish some stuff that their characters want to do. Lork has a couple things, gifts that he makes. He takes the Dracolich horn that he took from the Dracolich that they killed from the tomb of Anglashah, the Eldani Lord. And he makes a drinking cup out of it and gives it to Barry. And Barry's super impressed with it. Becomes one of his very favorite items. He also takes some of the scales. No, the scales he took from the Lenorm King, and he makes a shoulder pauldron of armor, and he gives it to Spraull. And Lork wears one similar that's made out of black dragon scale that he got from way back in the campaign, both in in-game and time-wise, when he did a little side session and ended up with some other characters fighting a younger black dragon, and they killed it. And Lork took that and had that. So he kind of likes to take trophies from important adversaries they defeat. So they do that. Barry reports in with his mentor Scion and fills him in completely on what's been going on with the Rod, the people they've met, things that they've done. He doesn't hold anything back and gives him the full rundown. Spraull goes to the Temple of Throsta, which is a dwarven brewing god, and he reports into Bruni Gurnison, who's the lead, the head of the temple. Fills him in on a little bit of stuff, but also shows him his plan to build his own temple. And they kind of debate on where he wants to put it. He thought about going to Moss Haven, which would have been a good spot, but he kind of settles on building one in Highhold because it's already being rebuilt. He feels that they could use Thruster's guidance there, so he plans on building a Temple of Thruster in Highhold, which is, I think, is awesome because like they're having like their own individual interests that aren't the primary focus of their game, but it's their characters are doing other things. So it shows that the players are invested in their characters, which is awesome. So they do that. Rene finishes paying off for his house, and Cosmo Chris wasn't at the session, so he kind of just shuffles off into the background and is hanging out at his elegantly but mismatched, gaudily decorated home and is just chilling. So then we come to the part we kind of been waiting for. They are going to join the two pieces of the rod of 7 parts that they have. They gather in a chamber in Sion's Tower where Barry does a lot of study, and present is Barry, who's doing the work. Spraull's there, kind of overseeing it, adding any sort of aid that he can. Moira's probably there, I imagine, although we didn't mention her. She didn't come up. I imagine she's there. Lork is there, and he's sitting there waiting, like he's prepared. And Bothild is there as well. Rene is there too, cheering people on or throwing in comments, because him and Barry have this very back and forth, like verbal jabs at each other relationship, which is pretty funny. They both play it out very well. So Barry starts this ritual, and before that ritual starts, it takes him or everybody's gathered, he already works on it. It takes 7 hours of like continuous work to inscribe these glyphs on the individual pieces of the rod to help, they're going to need so they can be joined. And Barry actually takes 9 hours to do it, to be super meticulous. And they take he makes the material components, he combines it, makes like a, some sort of, probably a paste or something that helps, a binding agent, I guess. And they go about this. So mechanically, there's some, in the way the box set works, it describes how to do this, like how mechanically how to do it. So there's certain percentages for things. I have Dave roll percentile dice, and he succeeds. Actually rolled an intelligence check first, succeeds at that. And then once that's done, that was just to make sure he put everything together right. And then when it comes time to join the pieces, it actually takes so much fine tuning to get the pieces just right. It takes like 20 minutes of game time to, in-game time, not real time, to join those pieces together, make sure they're fitted properly. And he rolls a percentile dice for that, and he's successful. So, meanwhile, behind my the Game Master screen, and the players are starting to figure this out. There's certain percentage of chances when things happen that can cause a reaction. So they've seen that happen, like Spraull casting, using the piece of rod he's been carrying. They use healing, a gate opens, and spider fiends come out. So they know that that's a possibility. Lork is specifically waiting for that to happen. He's sitting there with his weapons out, and that is his purpose. And Rene's kind of doing the same thing, as is Bothild. They're just waiting because they know those things can happen. And there's different factors that play into that, which I'm not going to say on the video because I don't want to reveal them all to the players who listen to this yet. They'll learn them over time, I'm sure. They're already starting to figure it out, I think. Anyway, I have a number in mind, like based on what they've done, it resulted in a certain percentage. I roll the percentage dice, and I want to say, I've forgotten now, but I think the overall chance of a gate opening was like 25, it was 25, maybe 30%. At most, it was 30%. And I roll a percentile dice, and I come up with a 15. So in this room, a gate opens, and 2 spider fiends come pouring out. Now, above board, we were getting close to the end of the night, and I was actually considered just ignoring that dice roll, which I don't typically do, but we were getting close to the end of the night. But I was like, nope, I rolled it, and by chance, I actually rolled low enough to actually have it succeed, so that it's going to happen. So we didn't have a board or anything built. This was the only board that you see that we used. So 2 spider fiends come rolling out, and again, true to form, I don't win initiative. The party isn't surprised. Like I said, Lork, Rene, and Bothild have been waiting for this to happen. And they leap into action, and the battle ensues. One of the spider fiends is brought down pretty quickly. I roll an attack for Bothild. I roll a natural 20, which is a critical hit. I roll to confirm. I roll another natural 20, and I don't think I've done that yet as the castle keeper. So it's max damage times 4. That thing had already taken some damage from some of the other, from probably the Lork and Spraull, maybe Spraull, and Rene, and that finishes it. I do a ton of damage. It basically cuts it in half. Because of the size of the room, which isn't big, one of them is on the ceiling, and that one is, they don't hit that one, it's the one on the ground. They kill it. Well, much like when they faced the spider fiends in the past, the spider fiends focus on whoever has the rod. They did a thing a while ago, and they learned this because it went after Spraull directly, and they had to play like pass with the rod to try to keep, they figured out it was going after the rod. And so this remaining spider fiend goes after Barry, crawls across the ceiling. They have really good movement, and the room is not big. So it's big enough for these 2 creatures, but it's like not a really big room. It hits Barry with a bite. It has a poison. Barry has to make a saving throw, which he fails. It's a Constitution saving throw. And he basically goes semi-conscious. And it had already moved, but actually no, I went last. It got to move again. It moved in, but then I didn't get to. It didn't. I'm not explaining this right. It still had its movement. So it bites Barry, and then scoops him up, and heads back towards the gate, which is still open, the portal, and everybody in the room gets an attack of opportunity because it's moving out of combat. Everybody's in range. The only person, I believe, if I recall this correctly, to hit it was Bothild. Because they're like, we need to bring this thing down, like, in this round, or we're in trouble. And what had happened, what had really changed this is what I'm not explaining correctly. What had really changed the scope of this fight is it had moved in and attacked, and that was its turn. We roll initiative, because I had gone last, and I win initiative. The first time I win initiative this entire night. And I win initiative. So the Spider Fiend goes first. Its action is to grab Barry and then head towards the portal. So the party gets a free attack. The only person to hit it is Bothild, and it is not brought down. And it disappears into the portal, and the portal closes behind him, and Barry's gone. And that is where we ended the session. I felt we were actually ended up a little bit early. The combat was really quick. I mean, Bothild murdered that thing with the double crit, which was awesome. But that's where we ended, and that was the perfect spot to end the session. It was like quite the cliffhanger, and we had a discussion about that at the end of the night. It was like, as players, as characters, they were like, what? Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Obviously they're worried about Barry, but they're like, we went through all this to get this stuff that we need. We get the thing together, and then these things show up, and then they leave, because Barry still has the two joined pieces of the rod, and they're gone through this portal. And they were like, and as players, I have great players. I'm very, very, very lucky. They're all like, that was awesome. Like, that was awesome. And it was fun for me because none of that was planned. Like, I did not plan on the Spider Fiend showing up. Didn't plan on losing Barry into a portal with the now two joined pieces of the rod of 7 parts. None of that. That was all the dice, and that's the beauty of having dice in the system, that randomness. But it's also, as a game master, you plan out your game, some people to different degrees, but like you have a rough idea of like sometimes which way it's going to go, but like you don't know for sure because of the dice, which is awesome, because that was a surprise to me too. So we were all left with a feeling like, I Karis think this totally sucks, but as players, it was awesome. So that's where we ended the session. We're playing again this month, and we'll figure out the fate of Barry. I'm working on that now. I haven't told the players much about anything, and I'm trying to decide the best way to play this out. And I'll actually throw this out here to the group. Part of me wants to play out like an encounter or scene, or however you want to describe it. I sometimes use the word scene instead of encounter. Play out a scene with just Barry. Obviously, there'll be a scene with just Barry, but doing that with just Dave and I, with none of the other players at the table. The other part of it is I do the whole thing with everybody there, so they all get to see it, because sometimes you do the cutscene stuff like from movies, so you get as a player, you get a broader scene of what's going on in the campaign, although your characters don't know it because they're not there. And I have really good players, like I said. I'm very lucky. They can all play like their characters don't know what's going on. But sometimes I also like true surprise. So I don't know. I'm debating on how to play this out. And if anybody has any suggestions or recommendations, please fire them off. I'd love to hear them. But yeah, that was the session. That's session 68. And I'll catch you all at the next one. Thanks for watching.